Okay, so welcome everyone. This is, I think, the second time ever that I give a webinar or some sort of lecture or short course thing. And today we're going to be talking about sex, gender, and sexual orientation. So then more towards the gender identity, because that's what we were talking about with gender dysphoria. So chances are, if you have any affiliation with the LGBT community, there'll be quite a bit that you know already. And when I gave it as a trial for my Lesbiese Vrouwenkoor, they also learned stuff. So there'll probably be things where it's like, oh, okay, that I didn't know. But for the most part, if you know LGBT stuff, there'll be something familiar there. So what we're going to do is it's going to be super interactive. So I would be happy if you have your microphones off and that we can also chat through it. If there's like noise in the background that you think I'd rather not, then you can also just, tap on and off. Right, so that's the agenda. So a little bit about intersectionality and then sex and sexual orientation. We're going to have a pause, and in the pause I've got a small activity which I thought was kind of cool, so you can or do it if you like, and if not, then you can go get a cup of tea or beer or wine or whatever. Then we move to gender, what a transition might look like, my previous research, and what does this mean for you as a psychologist. So what do you do if you have a question? If there are any questions, just ask them. That's not a problem. There are no wrong or silly questions. I am super duper open about this. So if you have a dire question, now's the time to ask, in terms of if you don't want to ask your client who's trans, or and do you have questions that you had previously thought of, like what made it interesting to come to this webinar? So if you have any questions, I invite you now to write them down and either ask them when we come to that point, or if you, towards the end, if you're like, oh, well, my question still hasn't been answered, then feel free to ask it. So, first of all, what is intersectionality? This is an actual question, it's not rhetorical. So, who would like to help me out with intersectionality?
The realization that if you want to do something for women's rights, you also have to do something for LGBT rights, and also for race and all of those issues. And it's not just pick at the things you do like, rather and just ignore the rest bits, really.
Yeah, nice. So as you can see at the bottom, it's from Bell Hooks, and Bell Hooks is American from the 1980s, I believe, and she specifically writes her name with lowercase letters. And yeah, so she described intersectionality as in third wave feminism. So it's not everyone has an intersectional. Everyone is intersectional. So can you give me some different intersections? So these are a couple that are going to come up. So describe some different intersections for me. So we've already had race, we've had sexuality. What else is there? Different intersections of of a person. So different characteristics that make up a person.
Class, ableism.
Joyce, your microphone is on.
Gender, is that also what you? Yeah.
Linda, anything to add?
No, I don't know.
No. This is very much a social sciences, gender studies kind of side of things.
Country?
Yeah, exactly. So here I've got also your education, your age, your physical appearance, ethnicity, gender, political stance, your socioeconomic status, your sex, your culture, your sexual orientation, religious and dis or ability. So the reason I bring this up is because often when we talk about someone's gender or someone's sex, it's assumed that that is the same. It's assumed that because you are, for example, a trans woman, you must be attracted to men, or because you're a trans man, you must be attracted to women. But the thing is, none of these have anything to do with each other. So you could be a genderqueer person who is also pan-romantic, and none of these have anything to do with each other. They're all different intersections that kind of meet to a point, and this is the person. So all of these different areas come together. So what is then the difference between sex, gender, and sexual orientation? Any ideas?
I guess gender is either, yeah, well, as we think to say it male or female, but I guess that's obviously also more in between, more possibilities than only those two. Sexual orientation, what you're attracted to with gender, and then actually the difference between sex, I don't know, maybe what kind of sexual organs you have, or I don't know.
Nice, Linda. Anyone else want to take an educated guess at it?
Well, sex is what you're born with, so basically what's between your legs. Gender is the ideas we have about what's typical male and typical female, and sexual orientation is, like Linda said, who you're interested in. Oh, hey.
Hi, little one. Joyce, do you have a...
He's going to bed.
On the night.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Wel te rusten.
Rusten.
Slaap lekker.
Bye-bye.
Oh.
So cute. Anyone else? Joyce, Andre?
Yeah, I was also struggling with the first one, the sex. I don't know what you mean by that. The difference between gender and sexual orientation. So
Yeah.
no, I was wondering. I'm curious.
Okay. Andre?
I have no idea because I just missed some of the noise of the. So I'm just repairing my my ear things, you know. So I didn't hear the question.
The question is, what is the difference between sex, gender, and sexual orientation?
I have no idea. Sorry.
No. Okay. Well, that is really good that I've kind of put this all together then. That's really exciting. So why is it not going further? There we go. So this is the gingerbread person. So I don't know if it's used here in the Netherlands, but in New Zealand we use it a lot. So your sex is the biological side of things. So we'll get more into that in a moment. Your gender is your gender identity. So it's about how you feel, how you end up expressing yourself, how you experience your own body, your experience, your social role in this world. And of course, your sexual orientation is who you want to be in a relationship or not. So how and this is a lot of different, so not necessarily just the physical, but also romantic, also intellectual. There are lots of different facets that you can be attracted to, also masculinity, femininity, androgyny. So I can't see what it says on top because there is a thing in the way, but sex. So sex is based on a person's reproductive functions. So their genitalia, their sex chromosomes, their gonads, their hormones, and reproductive structures. So how many different sexes do we have? How many are there? Is it a trick question or is it
Male,
not?
female, and something in the middle because it exists.
Yeah, yeah. And what do we call the one in the middle?
I once knew the name.
So it used to be called a hermaphrodite. And the reason it was called that this type of person was called hermaphrodite is because of the ancient Greek goddess Hermaphrodite, which is male and female being joined together. This is no longer a term that we use because it's considered derogatory. So the word we do use these days is intersex. So at the bottom, intersexequality.com. So we have a dyadic female, a dyadic male, and intersex. And dyadic means that everything lines up and this person can be identified at birth as female. But intersex, what does that mean? Because I mean, all of us here, we know what a guy is, what a girl is, and how to differentiate. But what does it mean if someone is intersex? Like I said, this is very interactive.
I think it can be anything in between where maybe somebody who maybe has the female hormones but doesn't have the female organs or reproductive system. Anything which is in between of what you say, where it's not dyadic but biologically in between.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Okay. Can you always tell when someone is intersex? No, I see a couple of no shaking heads. That's right. So often you can't tell. And often it's not until puberty that you may actually find out that you're intersex. Because the term hermaphrodite also meant that you had both male and female reproductive organs. But there are a lot of things in between. So if you have ever met a redhead, you have also met an intersex person because they have the same 1 in 2,000. 1 in 2,000 people are born intersex. So these are some of the different types of disorders that you can have. So this also includes if a genetically female person has an enlarged clitoris, then it's clitoromegaly. This is not really my area, so I know that they exist. So for example, mild androgen insensitivity syndrome, that is, for example, someone who is completely born male, has XY chromosomes, except they are androgen insensitive. So that means that they don't get androgen, and so everything about them will appear female, except that they don't have female reproductive system. So they also won't have a penis, etc. And then it's generally, this will be found out when the person is meant to get their period as a teenager, and they don't. And then they will find that there is no vaginal canal and that there are no female reproductive systems. So if you're interested, you can have a look at these. But there is a lot of different intersex intersex people and also intersex disorders. And the intersex community is also part of the LGBT community. LGBTI. Cute. So next one is sexual orientation. So this is who you would like or not like to be in a relationship with. Can we name some sexual orientations? What have we got?
lesbian, gay, bi, pan, straight, aromantic. That was a thing too, right?
Yeah, aromantic, asexual, yeah. Anyone else want to add to the list?
In my opinion, this was the list, but probably we missed something because you're asking.
Miss something. There are sexual orientations that I haven't even come across yet. So they are forever growing. So these are a couple of them. So are there any on there that you think, huh, I haven't heard of that before? And then I can give you the name. Oh, the what do you call it?
The gray asexual?
Gray asexual. Yeah. When you only rarely experience attraction on a very low scale under certain circumstances. So asexual is when you don't experience sexual attraction, but you still could be in a relationship. And gray asexual is kind of almost asexual.
And the androsexual? I've heard of the word, but I don't know what it means.
Androsexual is being attracted to the masculine gender. So this could be a woman who is very masculine, or a man who is very masculine, or someone who's androgynous who has a masculine appearance.
Okay.
So attracted to masculinity, but not attracted to genitalia, for example.
I thought I knew a lot, but very oriented and what? Peri-oriented.
Peri-oriented is sexual and romantic orientation targets the same gender. So you're hetero-romantic and heterosexual, or biromantic and bisexual. But this can also be the opposite. So your sexual and romantic orientations don't target the same gender. So for example, being hetero-romantic, so you can have romantic feelings towards someone of the same of the opposite gender, but being bisexual, so that you're also interested in having relationships with, for example, then women, so that it doesn't yeah. Has anyone of you guys actually thought about these things, about, or ever needed to think about, okay, what is my sexual orientation? How does this fit with me? Yeah. So not otherwise, no one else, one or so people. Yeah, when you start digging into this, it is a deep hole of a lot of information. So we're going to have a pause. That's quite quick. That went quicker than I expected. And we're going to do a matching game of what flags are these? Which flags belong to which identity? So you can get yourself a drink, or fill this in, or whatever you would like to do.
I'm a bit ashamed about how fast I will be ready, because I don't know much.
Maybe there's some that kind of stand out.
Yeah, I know one.
I would hope that everyone here might know C. And we'll give, I don't know, a few minutes for this, or a minute or two. Petra should be joining us. Stephen just entered. Welcome back, Stephen. We are doing a matching of of different identities to their flags. And there are many, many, many more of these. So I've kind of, just chosen the ones that I thought would be, that you're most likely to see. Okay, do people think they've had enough time? Yay, nay, kind of, maybe. So far, I don't see any responses, but very busy looking up and down. So maybe they're still working on it. Yeah. Okay. So, who would like to give me number one, the LGBTQI plus?
Was a C?
Yay! Yes, it was. Yeah. So that's the rainbow flag. And of course, now we also have the addition of the the triangle, that includes part of the trans flag, and it also includes black and brown, which symbolize people of color. So, do we also have the trans flag?
Is that H?
Yes, yeah, that is H.
Ooh. Guess correctly then.
Nicey nice. And number 3, pansexual, which is the pan flag. Now it gets a little more difficult. Linda, what did you have for pan?
I guessed B.
B?
Yes.
Sorry, that is incorrect. Anyone else? Andre, what about you? Silence. Okay, well, it's D. D is the pan flag. I hear a couple of ohs. Okay, what about genderqueer? It's one of my favorites. Joyce, what was your guess?
H? Yeah. I have no idea. It would only be a guess. I thought H.
Yeah, H was the trans flag.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh. I missed it.
Not a problem. Anyone else want to guess, or shall I maybe go through them a little bit? Yeah. Okay.
I'm trying to guess your taste in flags right now and color patterns because you said it wasn't.
My favorite. Well, that's because I identify as genderqueer, or
Fair.
gender fluid. So
Fair.
And often there is a little purple dragon that goes with the genderqueer flag, and so it is F. F is the genderqueer flag.
That's cool.
What about asexual? Lovely hint that it is A for asexual. Bisexual.
The B.
No, I didn't make it that easy. So bisexual is E, the pink, purple, and blue flag. non-binary. So you've only got G, B, and I left.
B.
So non-binary is G, and then we have demi-boy and demi-girl, and B and I. So demi-boy is, oh, we're going to come to that next anyway, but demi-boy is mostly identify as a boy, but there is another part of the identity, and the identity that could be anything. That could be you mostly identify as a boy, but there is also a little bit of a genderqueer identity, or there could be a little bit of a trans female identity, or it could be anything, but mostly then a boy. And that's same with demi-girl, mostly female, mostly girl, but there could be something else. So, like I said, there are many more. There's lipstick lesbian, there is the bear flag, there is the leather flag, there is, yeah, a lot of other things. So, Diana, welcome. We've just been through some flags, and now we're up to gender. So you just arrived for the gender part. So gender identity. What sort of gender identities are there? I just mentioned two, demi-boy and demi-girl. But what else is there? Diana, throw you in the deep end?
Oh, je moet me nu even niks vragen. Ik moet toch even schakelen, Shane. Sorry.
No worries.
Geef me even, oké? Vast iemand anders die wel even antwoord wil geven.
Gesley?
Cis women, cis men.
Cis women, cis men. Perfect. Anyone else? Lillian, throw you in the deep end. Gender identities.
Yes. What happens here? I have trouble. Shit, wat gebeurt hier nou?
You good there, Lillian?
Something is going not as I want to, because I'm
Right. Okay. Then if there are no more other guesses, then so we have cisgender and we have transgender. So cisgender is what you essentially, they look between your legs and they said, hey, it's a girl, or hey, it's a boy. Or they say, oh, we don't really know, and so that could be also intersex. But then when they say, hey, it's a girl, hey, it's a boy, and you identify with that as you grow up, then you're identified as, then you would have the identity as cisgender. So I guess that a lot of the people in this webinar then, that they were assigned male or female at birth, and that then growing up, that's not really questioned, or that's kind of like, yeah, this is what feels right. This is where I sit. Then you have the umbrella term transgender. And this is that you don't identify with what they said you were at birth. So here are a couple of the different gender identities. So AMAB is assigned male at birth, AFAB assigned female at birth. I came across the Maverickwi, I still don't know how to pronounce it, a non-binary gender that exists outside of the orthodox social bounds of gender. I came across that in my research because that's not something that I'd heard before. A lot of these are really, really specific to people. So, I mean, I've also come up with my own gender identity in that being a lesbian, then that is automatically, that label makes the assumption that you identify as female. Transbian was already taken because that's trans women who are also lesbians, transbian. So my friend came up with transmasculine lesbian. So I identify as transmasculine, from going from feminine to masculine, and then identifying still being a lesbian. So these are being made up every day and becoming a part of our language. But this isn't only the Western world. So we've also got a lot of different gender identities. I didn't put that in here. That would have been a good idea. But for example, in America, you've got the Native Americans who have Two-Spirit. In another couple of countries, you have 5 genders. You have male, female, trans woman, trans man, and gender fluid, or someone in between. In Samoa, you have Fa'afafine, and Fa'afafine is if the family didn't have enough women to do the women chores, they would take one of the youngest boys, and that boy would then be raised as a female. And they had a very special role in society in that they could move in between the male and the female world, which is very, very divided, which was an absolute privilege. And generally what we see with sexual orientation is that younger boys of a family are more likely to be gay than older boys, in that the female immune system, when it sees this XY, because women don't have XY, or people that are giving birth to children don't have XY, the body can start to attack it. So that is a theory of why the younger males are more likely to be gay. And so for Afafinas, that makes a lot of sense, that it's the younger males of the family which would then be raised as females. So a little bit of Pacific history. So what could transitioning look like? So this is more the people that you could get in your practice. What might it look like? And the reason I say what it could look like is because there are so many different gender identities that there is not one way to transition. So I have friends who have had top surgery, which is a double mastectomy, but have not taken hormones, or people that take hormones and don't do top surgery, or hysterectomy, or there's so many different ways to do this. So I've already named a few, specifically of transmasculine, but what are other ways that a transmasculine person, so someone who was identified as female at birth and now moving to a masculine, more masculine identity, what sort of things could they do to transition?
Hi, I'm participating now. My children are asleep.
Yay!
Take testosterone, start on testosterone.
Yep. Nice. Anything else?
Surgery for getting the male organ, the penis.
Yep, definitely. Very, very expensive. You're looking at least at 100,000. So much. I think that here it's probably a little bit more covered than in New Zealand, but I know in New Zealand you need to pay yourself for most of it. So that's hefty. There's also a number of different ways that you can construct a penis. Often there will be skin taken from the forearm or from the thigh. But it also depends whether or not, or how functioning you would want it, because it's not possible to create a penis that can become erect organically. So they make a ball system where you can pump it and it becomes erect. So that's possible. Any other ways that a trans masculine person could transition?
maybe less invasive, like wearing male clothes which are considered male at least.
Yeah, exactly. So the physical appearance. So this could also be wearing facial hair. I've definitely done that a number of times. There are a lot of different techniques, and you become very good at it about how to create a masculine appearance. Also with makeup, for example, drag kings. But yeah, changing your appearance. And so another thing that changing your appearance, a way you can do that is through binding. And binding, is there enough light? I think there is. I thought that it would be nice to show a live thing. So binder just looks like a singlet, but underneath is this really tight but stretchy material with bra hooks, and so you can then attach that around your chest, and yeah, that works really well to create a flat sort of appearance. A lot of young trans guys, if they can't afford something like this, because this is easily 40 euros for one, if they can't afford something like that, they often use ace bandages, which is something that you would, wrap your arm in if it was sore, or and this can be really dangerous. So if you ever have a young trans guy, making sure that they have the right sort of equipment. Oops, back. So with ace bandaging, you can really damage your breast tissue. But not only that, you can break ribs because you constrict the breath. So it's really, really important that you get proper gear. There is also the possibility to have an STP, and an STP stands for stand to pee. So I don't know if you've ever been camping and you have like a shiwi thing, so like an easy way to pee standing. Well, they also have that, and so that looks something like this. And they come in different sizes and different models. This particular one is a 3-in-1, which means you can pee through it. It is for packaging, as in when you've got it in your pants, it gives the appearance of a penis. And you can also have sex with it. You can penetrate, and there's a bit that goes in there, which is also right next to me. A bit that goes in, and so once it's in, then it becomes erect. And they've got a whole bunch of different things that go with this. For example, a bit in the front where you can inject a sperm type thing, and that if you want to come, then you can squirt it and it appears as though you come. So it depends on what the wearer wants from it. They go from, if you just want something to pack with, then it's fairly cheap. Then you're looking at around 80 euros. If you want something like that one, or something even more advanced, then you're looking at 300, 400, 500 euros. So there's that. That's the trans masculine side of things. What about the trans feminine side of things?
The
Well,
voice, maybe? Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
I was thinking the voice, to change your voice in octaves that you sound more feminine.
Definitely. Voice coaching. Yeah, for both sides. You've got voice coaching for trans masculine people and trans feminine. Yeah.
Also for both sides, of course, the physical appearance, so clothes and the like, but also changing the name, I would think.
Yes, that's a really big thing as well. Yeah. So for a lot of people, the name that they were born with, depending on how they feel with it, a lot of people in the community call it their dead name. So it that sounded like Deb, but I said dead name. And depending on who the person is, they could be really sensitive and can feel quite triggered when their dead name is used. for some people, they feel pretty comfortable with the name that they were given, and so they carry on using it. And others don't mind sharing what their name was before and what their name is now. But yeah, definitely. Hey, Wendy. And what about trans feminine? What's specific for trans feminine people?
Removal of the penis or creating a vagina?
Yeah, so bottom surgery.
Mhm.
Yeah, that is a much easier procedure for trans feminine people with still not easy, but a lot easier than for trans masculine people. So there's that.
Creating breasts, taking estrogen.
Yeah, estrogen, exactly. Also androgen blockers. So androgen blockers is often taken in the very first stage. And also, while we're talking about that with young children, they may also use hormone blockers. So it means that you don't necessarily go, well, you don't go through the same puberty that you would. It stays as is. This is a similar thing that, for example, ice skaters or gymnasts do. And also people with mental disabilities, if they as young kids are developing too fast, then that hormone blockers are also given. So this is something that's reasonably widely used.
Shane, at what age do they start doing that? Is there like a limit age or?
Generally,
Yeah.
generally around 10, 11, 12. It really depends when the child is going to start their puberty. And I mean, for all kids, that's slightly different.
Yeah.
The youngest trans child that I've had in my group that I was back in New Zealand was 6 years old. And so for him, it would have been, going through the system. And then once he's close to a female puberty, then they would do hormone blockers. And that way you've got the time to then be, okay, what feels right? Because of course we've got kids that are growing, but it's much easier to have that, as they grow older, that you can pause things instead of having to remove things. So that can be a lot less stressful. I know for some people that the idea of developing breasts is terrifying, or the idea of their voice dropping is disastrous. And so these things can then be, avoided for the time being till they're able to make that decision of, yes, I would like to transition. It's not unheard of that people detransition. So for some people, it's that for a very small amount of people, it's, okay, you know what, this is where I was then, this is where I am now, and that they detransition. But the fear, of course, for people is, yeah, but I don't want my kid to have to do that, or that it's like this big terrifying thing. But gender is fluid, sexuality is fluid. Just for most people, it stays quite stable.
How can you check for sure as a psychologist? I mean, if I've got a kid of 6-year-old coming up, I'm like, how can you? I know that people feel like this for forever, and it's not just something that they just randomly come up with as things, but still, a 6-year-old kid. I mean, how can you tell as a psychologist?
Yeah, it's hard. I had a parent ask me that I think last week. I had a parent call me about their 17-year-old son, trans son, saying, normally you hear that it's very little children that they're expressing this. So for example, I know of little trans girls who their parents catch them with scissors in their hands about to cut their penis off. Or with little trans girls who say, yeah, it's, when am I going to get my beard like daddy has, or those sorts of things. It's also because we live in such a gender, oh, I can go on and on and on about this, but we live in such a gendered world. So we have very split roles, and that's also what kids then see growing up. I see this very much with my nieces and nephews about, this is a boy's role, this is a girl's role. And that then there can be that inner conflict. And that doesn't always mean that a child is transgender. It could be, but that doesn't always mean that. So that's where it's a good idea to just explore, to talk about it, to be open with this kid, to just be who they want to be. It doesn't matter what clothing they wear. If they decide that they want to have a different name and they move towards that, then okay, maybe consider that with them. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden that they're going to have all of these surgeries, because that's something that comes later. So the biggest thing, allowing the kids to just be themselves, to just experience life. I'm going to quickly turn on a light. So, oops, where are we? There we are. So, we talked about most of it. Well, most of the side things. Feminizing facial surgery is another big one for trans feminine people. Tucking is well, the opposite of what a trans masculine person does. So tucking is often done with tape, tucking the penis and balls right underneath the person's body, and this can also be really dangerous, especially with blood flow. So while tucking is common, it's really, really not good. Microdosing for transmasculine people. So you've got just going on HRT, hormone replacement therapy, and you've also got microdosing. So testosterone is done with the jab in the muscle, so generally in the thigh or in the butt. And microdosing is done with the gel. And so the difference between taking a full jab of testosterone and microdosing is that microdosing goes a lot slower. So for more androgynous people, that might be then a preferred method to slowly take on more masculine characteristics. So for example, when you take testosterone, there's so many things that change in your body. Your shoulders get wider, your hips get smaller. It's about fat redistribution. Your voice drops, and once it's dropped, this does not change if you stop taking. You start having facial hair, your clitoris grows, more physical hair on your body. Fat distribution changes in your face as well, giving you a more masculine face as well. Estrogen does the exact opposite. So clients of mine who are on estrogen, their skin becomes a lot softer. They notice that they start having breast development as well, without actually having breast enlargement, or that their hips and butt get slightly bigger, and that's the opposite fat distribution. So there's a lot that can happen with just hormones. Then of course we've got the more social things. So the name change, if someone would like that, changing the sex on legal documents. In the Netherlands, this can now be an X as well. So as soon as I need to change mine, I'm going to an X. Super excited. I hope I can. But then there's the social transition, but that's, first to yourself, because that can take years. I've had some clients that come out when they're 30, 40, 50, 60, coming out to friends, coming out to family, coming out to work. Pronoun changes. So, that's what we didn't do. We didn't do an introduction round. That's a shame. Maybe we can do that at the end, and you can introduce how you identify, however you feel comfortable with, now that you've got all of these different things to think about. So pronoun change, I went from she, her to they, them, or he, him, his. That depends on the language. So it's a bit difficult in Dutch, so then just he, him, his is fine. Different sorts of clothing, hair and makeup, voice training, all these different things. So the pictures for the transmasculine is the peacock, which is what I showed before, and underneath is a binder. And on the feminine side, you've got padded underwear, which give the appearance of curves, and also silicone breasts that you can wear to give the appearance of breasts. So, what does your genderbread person look like? Can we go through the group, and you can say whichever you want. So if it's too personal, then you can just say your preferred pronouns. I'll start by giving an example. So my gender identity is genderqueer. I've got a couple of different labels, also demi-boy, genderqueer, gender fluid, that kind of in the middle that can go a bit like this. My gender expression goes along the whole thing. So you can find me in lingerie and a dress with lipstick. Very, very rare, but it happens. You can find me completely masculine, that I have a mustache completely flat and packing. And for the most part, which most people will see, is androgynous. So not really masculine, not really feminine, somewhere in between. My biological sex, as far as I'm aware, is female. I'm not aware of any intersex conditions that I don't think I have. My sexual orientation is, I think I would say homosexual, so lesbian. So that like I said before, transmasculine lesbian. But it might be going to homoflexible, in that very, very rarely I may have a partner who has a penis, but that's very, very rare. So maybe homoflexible, that might be, coming in. Who would like to express themselves?
I wouldn't
Absolutely
mind.
no. Yeah, go for it.
Me?
Yeah.
My gender identity, I identify as a woman. My gender expression is feminine. Biological sex, female. And sexual orientation is heterosexual.
Nice.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And then, shouldn't make assumptions, but I make the assumption you use she, her pronouns.
Yeah.
Nice.
Right.
Thank you for sharing.
Welcome.
Ik kan me aansluiten bij Kim, Shane.
Ja.
Same for me. Ja.
Nice.
Een beetje simpel wat dat betreft dan.
I know, isn't it? I don't know if I'm envious that it's so simple.
Yeah, I don't know if we are boring, but I agree. The same on all the different stages. Yeah.
I am the same also.
Yeah. Nice.
Hoewel, Shane, ik nog wel kan zeggen, qua gender role ben ik degene die thuis, die werkt en mijn man is huisman. Dus in die zin zijn onze, zeg maar, de traditionele rolverdeling hebben we wel veranderd. Dus in die zin, voel ik me wat dat betreft soms ook wel gewoon de man die het geld verdient, zeg maar. Maar dan werk ik uit huis. Dus.
Yeah. I think that's also really important, the whole social aspect of this, that we have very clear defined female male roles, and they are becoming a little bit mixed, but still, like you said, that is still quite a thing. That's like, well, you are the breadwinner.
Yeah. Ja, en
Dat-
andersom krijgt mijn man best wel, ja, die vindt het soms best wel lastig dat hij zeg maar thuis is met de kinderen. En daar krijgt hij ook wel best wel wat commentaar op van andere mannen, zeg maar ook. Van ja, dat is niks. En dat. Dus,
Ja.
ja.
That toxic masculinity of be a man.
Yeah.
You need a supply, you need a support.
Well, I'm Ghislaine. I was born as and am or identify as a cis woman. Pronouns are she, her. I'm straight, as far as I know. I was born female too, but I do wonder whether my gender expression is a bit androgynous. For example, psychologist is usually a very feminine role because, working in healthcare and all that. But, I am an entrepreneur, and I often get, and maybe this is something for the group as well, I often get that when I have a client who's a guy, people tend to assume that the guy is the psychologist and I'm the client somehow, which is interesting. And I also am a music producer. And as with the entire technical field, I'm often the only female in the room. So I guess that aspect of me is a bit more androgynous than what I tend to, appear like.
Yeah. Thank you. And Wendy?
Nee, gender identity is a woman, a gender expression. Daar zit ik ook een beetje in between of zo. Een enkele keer draag ik een jurk en dan denk ik, oké, dat is leuk. Maar mijn favoriete kledingstuk is zo baggy mogelijk. Of nou ja, gewoon, dat zeg maar. En ik merk wel, inderdaad, als psycholoog is dat niet altijd even... wordt niet altijd als even professioneel gezien of zo. Dus nou ja, dan draag ik toch wel andere kleren dan dat ik zelf zou kiezen. En ik had laatst een gesprek met iemand, met Niels. En we hadden een gesprek en ik vroeg hem vanaf welke leeftijd wist je dat je op mannen viel? En toen vroeg hij, vanaf welke leeftijd wist jij dat je op mannen viel? En toen dacht ik, shit, interessante vraag. En toen dacht ik, ja, I always assumed or something. Dus ja, mijn eerste antwoord zou eigenlijk zijn heteroseksueel. Maar aan de andere kant, het is niet zo dat ik ben nog nooit verliefd geweest op een vrouw. Maar ik kan ook niet zeggen dat ik nooit verliefd ga worden op een vrouw. Zo, het is me nog nooit gebeurd. Maar om nou te zeggen dat het dus ook niet gaat gebeuren. Ik vond het een interessante wedervraag.
Yeah.
Dus
We learned that in gay school, by the way.
Okay, yeah.
What sort of answers to give to those sorts of questions.
Ja, ik vond hem erg interessant. Ik vond het een goede vraag.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you, Wendy. André, Steven.
Ja, ik zit er net te kijken. Ik man, masculien, male en heteroseksueel.
Ja.
Maar ik heb ook wel dingen die... ik doe heel veel in het huishouden, om maar net even te zeggen. Ik ben de kok, ik kook altijd. Dus mijn vrouw is niet geïnteresseerd in koken en ik vind het heel leuk. Dus ik heb wel heel veel taken in huis. Maar dat komt ook omdat ik inmiddels wat ouder ben en niet meer fulltime werk. Dus dat heeft ook met elkaar te maken. Maar ik beschouw mezelf niet als een harde man of zo. Ik heb zachte kanten, om het maar zo te zeggen.
Nice. Thank you. Stephen, I see your microphone has turned off.
Yeah. Hello. I'm a man, masculine, straight. So, yeah, I see never have ever been a doubt or conflict in me about this. So, but I know there are a lot of people who have those doubts and conflicts. So that's why I'm joining to learn more, perhaps.
Nice. Thank you. Yeah.
But I have a question. Or is there somebody else who wants to express?
Please ask away. We can then go to expression again afterwards. That's fine.
I joined a little bit later, but maybe I missed something. But I'm curious about the history, because I already have some basic knowledge. I have the book Gender Identity of Sarah Hoffman. I think you know that. No?
Nope.
Nobody knows it? It's very...
I don't
Huh?
see any nods. Do I see any nods? No, no nods. Sorry.
Dara Hoffman.
Unfortunately, still not.
It's really a professional book, self-help guide, because I had a client who has serious gender identity questions, and I couldn't help her with that because I'm not specialized in this. But I wonder what is. Could you tell us something about the history of this? Is there a lot of knowledge about? Is it throughout history always some issue of a part of the population, or is it something that's new in the latest century?
No. So this dates the earliest that I know of, and I make the assumption that it's plenty earlier than this, is ancient Greece. You what's the word? Maybe someone can help me out. Where young boys would be castrated so they never become men, and they were therefore not women and not men. So that is already ancient Greek, and that ancient Greece.
I know that story, but that doesn't sound like gender dysphoria, but more like something that they've been tricked to do because
that was done
of
society.
the choir. That they were members of a choir, and so when they were castrated, they wouldn't lose their beautiful high voice.
So that as well, but also for sexual interests, because homosexuality was looked down upon in ancient Greece. But that doesn't mean that it didn't happen. But it was okay then to be the dominant as with sexuality, and so that then also came in with it. But I mean, cross-dressing has been a part of our history, the Western history already for a long time. With, for example, gentlewomen in Victorian times, and you've also got men that have cross-dressed already during those times as well. And also, if you go outside of the Western history, then, like I mentioned before, you also have Afafina in Thailand. You have ladyboys in America. You've got Two-Spirit. So these are things that have always been there and were really, really normalized until Western culture came in. So it's the Christian ideals that once all of these places were colonized, that this was seen as an abomination and then taken out.
Okay.
So it's really, really normal to have this sort of variance in our society. I think what you see now, why it's all of a sudden that there is this quite a shift. What I think I see in our population is that we are moving away from the social norms of this is male, this is female, and finding more of an equality. So I see a lot of genderqueer young people who start to abandon that idea of this is what a marriage looks like, this is what a particular role looks like. So I see this also in this we haven't touched on at all, but in sexual preferences between monogamy and polyamory. so that all of these social constructs, because that's what they are, gender is a social construct, marriage, our economy, everything that we live in is a social construct. We make it this way, we choose it to be this way. And it's constantly evolving, constantly changing. So is gender.
I understand, but I want to express a side note with that, because I have all the respect for people who have another preference or another, I cannot pronounce the word exactly right, transgender. Let's say
Je mag het ook in Nederlands zeggen.
this way, but oké, ik zal het in Nederlands zeggen. Ik heb alle respect voor mensen die dus transgender zijn, of welke identiteit je er ook op wil plakken. Maar ja, als je zeg maar kijkt naar hoe de natuur het bedoeld heeft, en dat klinkt misschien heel erg ouderwets, maar dan zijn er toch wel bepaalde patronen en regels die het beste werken in een relatie. Als twee mensen besluiten samen een leven te delen. En of het nou twee mannen, twee vrouwen of een man en een vrouw zijn. Maar er zijn bepaalde aspecten die bijvoorbeeld heel erg goed zijn. Uiteindelijk blijf je bij elkaar door aantrekkingskracht. En ja, het valt me op dat er in psychologieland nog heel weinig wordt gesproken en bekend is eigenlijk over hoe aantrekkingskracht nou echt werkt. En ik heb me daar toch wel een beetje in verdiept. En omdat heel veel relaties stuk lopen doordat iets met die aantrekkingskracht gebeurt. En dat heeft toch wel iets met rolpatronen te maken en bepaalde specifieke gedragingen die we instinctief toch in de ander zoeken als het gaat om een andere sekse of dezelfde sekse, want val me op en verbeter me als je het anders ziet. Dat ook in bijvoorbeeld lesbische of homoseksuele stellen, dat daar ook een rol in te onderscheiden is. Hè? Dat de ene die heeft meer de neiging zich als een vrouw te gedragen en de ander een beetje als een man.
Ik wil je even doorbreken, want gender en seksueel oriëntaties zijn wel anders. Misschien heb je die stuk gemist, maar dit kan ik ook uitsturen en je kan het even naar kijken. Maar is het misschien een goed idee dat we verder doorgaan met... en misschien kunnen we een andere keer samen bespreken. Dat vind ik ook hartstikke interessant.
Oké, nee, ik reageer alleen maar op wat jij zei over dat het in de cultuur dat er een shift is, zeg maar.
Ja.
Maar ik vraag me af of dat een richting is die we op willen gaan met z'n allen. Of dat we misschien toch ruimte, aan de ene kant ruimte creëren voor mensen die het anders willen, aan de andere kant ook respecteren van hoe de natuur het eigenlijk bedoeld heeft.
Ja, interessant. It's an interesting viewpoint as well. Yeah.
Oké.
Nice, thank you.
Dat is wat ik wilde zeggen, dankjewel.
No worries, thank you. So really quick, the last bits, because I think we're already, we've already been going for quite a while. So a couple of years ago, I published my research about gender identity and the mediating roles of rumination and appearance congruence and what that does on self-esteem. So what we found is what it says there, that low self-esteem is a really common underlying symptom of that transgender people experience. And so essentially what I wanted to show with this is that when we look at treating our clients who are gender dysphoric or are transgender, often we look straight at the medical side. Okay, what do you need to get where you want to be? But there is this whole other layer of being accepted for who they are in that moment. And that's really where this low self-esteem comes in. And also a lot of anxiety. So most of my transgender clients come in with some form of anxiety. If you are interested in reading it, then I can also put the link in an email. My plan was to carry on with research, and I have got the okay from Utrecht University that the plan is to research what is it that is lacking in the medical profession. So with our eerste en hulpverleners, with our psychologists, with our nurses, with our physiotherapists, etc. Physiotherapists, not really eerste en hulp, but what's happening there that the transgender community is not very content with the care that we provide. So that is an ongoing research that I'm working towards. What does this mean for you? And this is kind of a whole bunch of blah information, which that is put together. So maybe you can read this in your own time, but it's about asking what pronouns someone prefers, how using the words and definitions that someone defines themselves with. So not giving them labels. Ask questions respectfully. If you don't know, try to find someone who does. So for example, if you have transgender clients and you have a question, you're welcome to ask me, or any other transgender people you know in your community, or LGBT people. Take transgender people and their concerns seriously. And also outside, challenge the gender assumptions and transphobia whenever you see it, if you're able to. And view a transgender identity as something positive, because I love my identity, and so many of my clients are so proud of their identity that you can experience gender dysphoria, but that doesn't mean that you are that you're in distress about it. So don't out someone as trans. Don't assume who they are. Please don't refer to them as it or he, she, or she, he. Just then as a person. So don't put their chosen. Don't put these things in quotation marks, because this is the truth for that person. So if they say that their preferred name is Shane, don't put that in quotation marks, because it's not my real name, kind of thing. You don't necessarily need to know what sort of genitalia they have. If they would like to ask you, if they would like to tell you, nice. If they don't, they don't ask. We don't ask our cisgendered clients what sort of genitalia they have. Just because you can't tell that there is no one that is transgender in the room doesn't mean there aren't. And that's same with people that are intersex. Like I said, 1 in 2,000. That's a lot. If you've met a person with red hair, you've also met someone who's intersex. So mirror their own language. So not placing labels. So that's like a real, I don't know, blah of information. But if you've got any questions, now's the time. And otherwise we can go towards ending a long, hard day's work.